Hey everybody, Norm from Tested here.
And Jeremy from Tested.
Welcome back to Projections, where this week we're going back in time and talking about one of the first projects you did in VR.
Yeah.
It is this guy, the Pinsim.
Right, so years ago, like in the old office, we had seen Pinball FX 2 VR at a Rift demo. And I said immediately when I saw this, I was like, this has to use a pinball interface. You need to be able to stand at something that is correct pinball dimensions, at least the first 8 inches of it, and play that game in VR, because it would appear like the table was going out from the thing that you were holding. So I mocked it up as soon as it came out. I made it out of foam core, I brought it into Tested, and I released the files on GitHub. It's been years since then, and there's a lot that has changed about Pinsim and what it can do, and I wanted to share that with our audience and with you.
Awesome. Oh, I can't wait to hear it. For you, those of you who have never seen this, that's what this is right here. Like you said, the first 8 inches of essentially a pinball machine. Now these buttons correspond to the interface that you would usually be using, whether it's touch controllers or an Xbox gamepad.
A lot of people ask, like, how does the game support it? I'm like, if it supports a gamepad, it'll support this, because this looks like an Xbox 360 gamepad to whatever you plug it into. You can plug it into PCs. You can even plug it into the Oculus Go using an a USB on-the-go cable adapter. You can plug it into whatever takes a gamepad, and it should work. As you said, these are like ABXY buttons, start, stop, D-pad. It's all gamepad based.
So Jeremy, a couple years later, what's new with Pinsim?
Well, first of all, the cabinet, right? So this wooden one was made by my friend Chris Mann, who's a woodworker, and it's all to the same dimensions as the foam core one, but a lot more sturdy. Obviously, everything is like real pinball legs, but it's the right angle, it's the right dimensions, everything's like as it should be. Some people have made these, and they've taken it the extra step. They've put down a lockdown bar, side rails. I just like the feeling of wood, and when I'm in VR, it's enough of an illusion for me.
Right.
But beyond that, the technical stuff is quite extensive. When I showed you, it was a start, launch button to fire the balls. Now we have an analog plunger. Right? And I'd love to show how that works under the hood. We have basically an infrared sensor that fires forward and then reflects off this disc that you put onto the end of the plunger. As you pull it forward, it sees the distance change, and I map that to the right analog stick pulling down.
So it's an actual analog control.
Exactly.
You get degrees of distance.
Which, like, you try to hit a skill shot with a 360 gamepad, forget it, because it's so finicky. Like, where are you supposed to let go? This is great. So you pull it back, and in game, you could see it come back. In Adam's Family, you're hitting that skill shot now. So it's definitely cool. We also have rumble motors. I don't think I had that in the one that I showed you. They're 360. The whole thing's a gamepad. So these are your left and right rumble motors. You can get these off eBay for $10. And it plugs into the board, so you get haptic feedback. Whenever the game fires rumble, whether it's pops or slingshots, you can feel it in the cabinet now.
Do you feel it kind of aligns with your expectation on playing a pinball machine, or it's just nice?
It's nice. It's nice. It all runs off USB bus power, so it's not going to rumble. Your neighbors aren't going to notice this. Right. But it's more than nothing, and I appreciate the feedback. It also has an accelerometer in there, so you can nudge it, and that's usually the left analog stick on a gamepad, right? And you can nudge it in different directions with the gamepad, but still not real easy to do while you're playing. With this, you hit it from here, the ball goes that way, you hit it over here, and it's hit it forward, and the ball goes that way. It's more of a real feeling of nudging, which is a huge part of playing pinball.
And this works because the developers that you've ported this for have built those features into the game.
Exactly.
Nudging and skill shots. And,
exactly.
And kind of map those, never realizing that someone like you would put together the analog version.
Well, I don't think the Zen Pinball guys did when they made Pinball FX 2 VR, but as soon as this came out, and it kind of, in my little world, it went kind of viral. Like, I heard from the Pinball FX 2 guys, they loved it. Oculus liked it, and so word started to spread a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if people who work at other pinball developing, making VR stuff, were aware of it and maybe built their own. I would not be surprised by that, because there are a lot of fans out there who did. Right. It was written up in Make Magazine. They built a beautiful one that was Star Trek themed, but it's definitely something that, if you're heavy in the VR and you're heavy in the pinball,
there's intersection right there.
there's a Venn diagram.
Then you live in Jeremy's house because you're Jeremy.
There's a Venn diagram somewhere with my people right in the center of it, and I love it. But yes.
Then on the software side, right? What's changed since a couple years?
So as more and more apps came out that either like barely had support or just needed little tweaks, I was able to add some new features to it. So there's several pinball apps now. There's obviously Pinball FX 2 VR, which they've now released several more games. Like that shipped with an initial bundle of 3 or 4 games. Now there's a lot more games in there. You can play like Walking Dead, E.T., Back to the Future. Unfortunately, like the ones that have real pinball game equivalents, like Back to the Future and Walking Dead, they're not the real pinball games that you would play in the real world.
Got it.
They're Zen's version of them.
Yeah, just relicense.
Exactly. But nonetheless, it's still virtual reality pinball, which is a lot of fun. As a side note, they now have the Williams license to make the classics, and they're doing that in 2D. Everyone who's playing pinball in VR is hoping that they will come out with VR versions of that.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood, let's see that. Additionally, there's a Zaccaria pinball, which is an Italian pinball manufacturer from the mid-70s to mid-80s. They made some really interesting games with some novel mechanics. They have an excellent simulation that's available on Steam. 30 games in there. And
30 VR games?
And yeah, 30 pinball tables.
What?
And they're really well done. Like, it's one of the best graphical simulations. Their menus, oddly, very bad. Like, like almost unusable. But once you get into the game, fantastic simulation. There is the Stern Pinball Arcade, which is available on Rift and I think on Steam as well. That is a handful of newer Stern titles. So you can play Star Trek, Ghostbusters, Mustang, as well as a few of their classics. And that's all works in here. And now you can also play on the Oculus Go, which is exciting because if it works on the Oculus Go,
It's got to work on Quest. Maybe.
if Quest comes and Zen makes Pinball FX 2 VR for it, and it works with USB on the go, it should work. And that's one of the things I'm excited to get my hands on Quest to find out, like if this does in fact work with that. And I'd be very happy if it did, because playing on the go is super convenient, but you lose the 6-DoF headset experience.
Yeah.
And that is, I've always thought, MAME is great for arcade games. It emulates the 2D, component that you're looking for, and you're playing with a gamepad or even the keyboard. It's close enough to giving you that nostalgia kick. Pinball in 2 dimensions has never been anything that I wanted to play.
Right.
Because I need that moving my head around, reading the ball.
That's a flat screen abstraction.
Yeah, if you see the pinball games in 2 dimensions, the camera's like locked down, like it's on a tripod. Nobody plays like that. People are always doing this kind of thing, and they're not thinking about it. It's just how you get a better read. It's how you read the physics of the gameplay. And in order to get that virtually, you need a 6-DoF experience. And so that's why this now makes pinball emulation a thing.
Not only pinball emulation, but maybe arcade emulation as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously, like, since it's just a gamepad, this can hook up to, it certainly works very easily in the Go. But if you also play, what is that arcade game? The Neon Retro arcade,
Okay.
New Retro. You could get it to work with that, because again, it's just a gamepad. Like, that's one of the benefits of looking like an X input device. There are a few things that now you have to do. So if this by default is D-pad, but now if you hold down the button combo and hit up or down, it becomes the analog stick. Right. Flippers now can also support, like, some crazy people out there who've gone, they want more, like, full featured. This was initially just left and right buttons. Now you can make it support, if you install them, dual leaf flippers. So as a real pinball game, if you put your buttons in halfway, they will fire the lower flippers. If you push it in all the way, they'll fire the upper ones too.
Two-action, yeah.
Exactly. This will support that. So it will do the bumpers at first, and then the triggers on a gamepad, right?
And that's just
wanted it.
adapting with the software with X input,
Exactly.
programming in the shortcuts. You're
Right.
creating macros for the analog buttons.
That gets into, like, well, does the game support it? So this will, but does the game? And it's up to them to figure out. It'll also support 2 buttons. So some people wanted, like Magna Save and Flipper. So however you want to wire it up, this kind of auto detects that. And if the game supports it, you can then do it. It's just a lot of fun to be able to have a device that you can stand at, and when you're in VR, it feels like you're playing pinball. And you can move this around a little bit easier than a real pinball machine.
Absolutely. And all of this to say that even though this is something that you came up with and designed a couple of years ago, now it's been improved. The GitHub has all the latest info on this, and there's just a lot more software out there that you can get a lot more mileage off of a Pinsim that you may build.
The biggest news, though, Norm, is this whole new thing that started just a month ago, which is Visual Pinball now supports VR. Visual Pinball is basically MAME for pinball. So right now, there's hundreds of games that are supported by Visual Pinball. You load it up, it pairs with PinMAME, which is actually what emulates the pinball software. But then fans have remade all the classics, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Theater of Magic, The Addams Family, Medieval Madness. They've all been remade by fans, basically to emulate their favorite games. And now somebody has taken the open source project and ported it to OpenGL VR. And there's an executable that you can download. Like every bit of like hardcore PC gaming software, open source software, it's kind of a pain in the butt. But once you get it set up, you put your headset on, you load up a game, and you can now play the classics with this. And they're all out there. Now, of course, it's emulation. You're supposed to own the games, this kind of thing. But you click through that, and as long as you can find everything, and really the ROMs they're not hidden. Like they're available many places because people who have the games at home need to download them to install the games. That has opened up so many doors in terms of being able to finally play the classics in virtual reality, and it's so much fun in order to play this. Now, obviously the graphics aren't great, but the physics are excellent.
Yeah.
So they're the next best thing. Like if Zen Pinball eventually releases a VR version, I think that's going to be the one to play. That will be the high bar. But for now, you can finally play the classics, and that's huge for us.
Very cool. Thanks for bringing this in. Again, I encourage you guys, if you have a VR headset, try playing pinball in VR. And if you like it, then consider downloading the files and building one yourself.
Yep.
We're always looking for photos, videos of people out there who've made their own PimSims. I haven't seen one in the wild yet. I'd love to see one in an arcade. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Well, yeah, but then what are you talking about? Like a communal VR headset?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I want that.
Bring your Go, plug it in, use the controller. Right. But for now, hopefully you're going to be thinking more improvements. You're going to be continuing this ongoing project, or are you closing the book on it?
Well, there's not much more to add. I mean, it already supports everything that's out. If there's a problem with it and it's easy to do, I love making tweaks to that source. So whatever, you're right. I mean, if Quest needs something in order to make it work, done. Like, yeah, I'll definitely be supporting this as long as I can.
Awesome. Very cool. That's the Pinsim. One game that also just came out that we've been playing, it's on both the Oculus Store and Steam VR, is Audica.
Harmonix's second VR game.
They did Rock Band VR.
That's right. Rock Band, an important game because it used the first peripheral that was expressly made for a game.
Yes, attached to your touch controllers. This one, no special peripheral needed. A small team in Harmonix, of course, known for their music rhythm games. Now they have a shooting music game.
Right. So the idea is you have pistols in each hand, and in the spirit of Beat Saber, they are different colors, and you have to shoot the targets that are the color of the gun. So sometimes your right hand is shooting to the left side if they want to trick it up a little bit, and vice versa. And there's different target styles, right? There's simple targets where you just hit on the beat. There are targets that are diamond-shaped, where you click and hold, essentially, and they push back. And then there's these chain targets they go around in different directions, and you have to keep it held again, and the same kind of thing.
Right.
And then there's also more difficult, there are angled targets, right? So they're like slats instead of circles, they're lines, and you have to go gangsta style, right? You have to go sideways, or if they're vertical, you have to be vertical. And
they pop in, they fly in, there's a visual indicator that's along with they're programmed for music tracks for when the beat drops, when certain notes hits, and very similar to Beat Saber, we're going to be referencing that a lot, their difficulty levels. So the complexity almost exponentially increases.
Difficulty levels that you choose.
You choose,
yes.
That if you get really good at this, you are moving a lot.
I mean, that's in the spirit of Harmonix's games. They all have this insane level of difficulty if you want to commit the time.
Yes, yes. Now, we are referencing a Beat Saber, but this, in my mind, it kind of harkens back to one of the early VR games where you're punching the music. Remember that game where you're punching in the musical notes as they're coming?
Yes.
Very physical.
And in this game, we didn't mention, you also can punch things.
Yes.
There are these orbs that fly out at you, and you hit them with your hand. And sometimes there's two, so you have to hit them with both hands. And interestingly, like sometimes you're still holding on to a note or two when you do that. So it kind of combines things.
The point of reference a lot of people are going to make with this, I think, are twofold. One with Beat Saber, obviously, and also with, I think, Space Pirate Trainer.
It's kind of a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm curious what you think, because I think in my mind, it's two great tastes that don't necessarily go so great together.
You know, I'm with you. However, we gotta say, this is an early access title. I think that they know that it's early for the game. This is made by a very small team within Harmonix.
But let's dig deep down. Why did this not feel as satisfying as either of those to me? I think, and I thought about this. I think Beat Saber, very logical. There's a thing, you know, you're holding these laser swords. One, there's an idle. You can do things while you're idle. Before the music comes, it's fun to swing them around. And two, when the beats come to you, you have a nice broad action where it's not just hit or miss, too early, too slow, but you're slicing movements, a little more physical.
Beat Saber's rules are interesting because you don't have to hit the blocks on the beat to get a good score. You just have to hit them at all, and the harder you swing, the more points you get.
So a little more forgiving, encourages a little more physicality into it.
Audica is a timing game. You have these circles that enclose around the target so that when it gets to its point where you're supposed to hit it, that's where you're supposed to hit. And at the end of every level, you get an accuracy rating.
And I think most importantly, a game like Beat Saber where we're using these batons, it has an analog to music, drums, drumsticks.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
You're essentially kind of mashing out your animal from the Muppets.
And you're kind of dancing.
Yes,
right, when
exactly.
you play Beat Saber.
Yeah.
I didn't get the feeling like I was dancing when I was playing Audica.
It's pew-pew.
It's just pew-pew.
Right? And I'm not even going out necessarily like that. I'm just kind of, make sure I hit it right. And it's satisfying, but also I wasn't very good at it. I felt punishing in a certain respect.
Man, I think everyone's going to feel punished by this game. Even the people that want to put the time in to hit those expert levels, because those expert levels are crazy punishing.
Yeah.
Like, I have to turn on no fail mode. Otherwise, I'm gone in 5 seconds, maybe 10. You know, because it is just like they're raining down on you, all these targets, and it becomes a memorization game.
Like the thing that I was playing, I was wondering what could they do to make this more interesting? What idle mechanic? You know, I know conceptually they want people to be aiming at things and shooting at them.
Yeah.
But even in a game like Space Pirate Trainer, where I am shooting at moving objects, it's very physical because I'm dodging things. I'm getting into it, and I kind of wish that the music was tied to more than just hitting a target. And the music encourage more body movement, swinging. Yes, you have to aim and hit the targets, but like do more because they can tap into so many of these tracks and so many of the beats. I wish it was just less than just hit. You get the note, you miss it, it's subdued.
They do the cool stuff when you miss a note. They put like a high pass filter on the music, so part of the range drops out. They appear to lose specific instruments too. So in that kind of SSX tricky feeling, like when you do well, it feels great. Like you do get that sensation. So I appreciate what the steps that they're taking to do the emotional component of the game. My biggest problem was that the field of view, I felt severely limited. When in Beat Saber, you've got everything coming at you from the front, and nothing's ever outside your field of view. With this game, they're asking you to look over here to shoot that target, and there's more that are coming over here. And they do some flares. They do some things to draw your attention back, but it's just not enough. It's not enough for me anyway.
Yeah.
So it really, again, becomes a memorization exercise where I have to remember where they are and be ready for them.
If they're going for taking the satisfaction of gunplay in VR, which we know there are a lot of games where having these kind of virtual pistols can be a lot of fun, from Robo Recall, Space Pirate Trainer, and then combine that with music. I wish they would embrace the gunplay aspect more.
In what way?
Like reloads or holding down, and more fun animations. Now I get they're a small team, but I see this is opportunity to grow it. Like if the pitch is John Wick with music, make me feel like John Wick first, and then the music stuff will come naturally.
So would you want a real world kind of environment?
Doesn't need to even be that.
Where you're in a shooting gallery?
No, but just a fun reload actions, can cue music beats, add to music, doing things, swapping, make it a full-on shooter.
I kind of got a good feeling though that similar to that when they would involve targets with hitting the spheres not simultaneously, but right after one another, so that you like smash, fire. Like there's an element of not reloading, but these kind of different movements that you have to do. And again, like I know that I'm complaining that it's a memorization exercise. That's what Dance Dance Revolution is. That's what Guitar Hero is. All of these games require that. So the people that enjoy that style of game, I think there might be something here.
Totally.
I also think that I would like more from that normal difficulty where it doesn't involve the turning, because once you incorporate the turning, it's just too much for me. Like I like the different styles of shooting, but I don't want to have to worry about which way my hand is rotated. That's an element of complexity that I'm not interested in.
Dance Dance Revolution is a fantastic example. I think people who are excellent in that game may not be excellent dancers, or may not even feel like they're dancing. They just have memorized the pads and the roots.
And it's impressive to watch them play.
Totally, where I think if you play a game like Audica, you may be really good at getting the memorization pattern, but you're not feeling like you're a great John Wick style, gun fu expert.
Right.
And Beat Saber, I think, surpasses that because you can do well and you still feel like, let's be honest, a Jedi. Yeah. So that's Audica. It's out now, early access. The songs, I think, are great. I think they can definitely, there's room to expand, explore more.
10 songs, I think?
Yep, with many difficulty, 4 difficulty levels, and on those stores now. Next week is GDC, the Game Developers Conference. It came up so quickly. You'll be there. We'll be doing some demos early on.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're going to be out of town, so I'm covering it, most of the actual GDC event. But I will be happy to give you a call at the end of every day and let you know what I've learned.
So text messages for all the new stuff you get to see. What are your hopes and fears?
Well, I mean, anything Quest, obviously. I think everyone who follows this show, follows virtual reality, is excited to see what Quest brings. And I think we'll probably get to see some new Quest games for the first time at GDC, which I'm excited about. I don't expect to learn anything new about availability, release date. They're still saying spring. But any more experience that we get on the device would be great. So we've really only tried like 3 titles, and I want to see what can this do. What can developers, wreak out of this Snapdragon processor?
Yeah, and they have announced that they're going to be this like 50 title lineup whenever they launch, and hopefully we'll get to meet more developers working on it to pick their brains about how it compares to developing on a mobile platform versus the Rift, or even on something like a 3DOF system like the Go. I think that our favorite part of GDC is meeting developers and hearing about their experiments with new hardware and their lessons learned in VR.
Absolutely.
I'm bummed I'll be missing it.
I know.
But
I'm also meeting with HTC, and I'm super excited to try their new headsets as well. We know all about the Vision headset, so that's going to incorporate eye tracking, and I'd love to see what that does. And they have an all-in-one as well that I'm looking forward to trying out.
That's basically saying that we have a lot more VR content coming in the next coming weeks. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.